Have you ever thought to yourself, I'd like to start a home server, but I need training wheels? Sure, you could get a turnkey option, but what's the fun in that? I'm on a mission to take back my tech, so I found the Zimaboard 2 to be the perfect middle ground between convenience and learning. But today we're going to get the Zimaboard 2 set up as my new storage solution with remote access. One of the many things I found appealing about the Zimaboard 2 is the fact that it comes delivered in a full package with almost everything you need other than the hard drives. That puts it at a very affordable price point for everything you're getting. My first roadblock was that pretty much no instructions were provided. So after piecing everything together and figuring out what's supposed to be connected to what, it's pretty straightforward. Thankfully, I was successful in my attempts to hack the motherboard and access the mainframe with my Allen wrench. And after a couple hours of doubt and self-loathing, I finally had everything put together. So I went to sleep because my poor little brain was fried. When I walked into my office the next day, I couldn't help but feel a little sense of accomplishment. Anyone out there super familiar with this type of stuff might think it's not that big of a deal. But for someone like me who kind of feels like a sucker after being spoon-fed convenience over the last several years, it felt awesome to get my hands on components I never really have to see, but got to experience thanks to choosing something that had just a little assembly required. I'm basically Tony Stark now. How do I get this bad boy talking to the rest of my devices? I mean, the suit is nothing without Jarvis. Does that analogy work? I need ZimaOS to unify all of my stuff. So I got this 50-foot Category 6 Ethernet cable for less than $10 to get the full speed out of the Ethernet ports. Now that everything's on the same network, discovery was super easy once I downloaded the Zima client apps. Honestly, much easier than I expected. Now that I've gotten a hang of how everything works, it's really hard to go back to the place in the beginning when everything was extremely confusing. It all seems so intuitive now. But at the time, I didn't know the difference between storage and files or what RAID configuration to pick. Is BTRFS the right file system? I think they call it Butterface. But once again, it turns out I was overthinking everything. ZimaOS defaults to BTRFS. The file system works on Mac, Windows, and Linux. And since I'm adding storage backup, I went with RAID 0 to maximize my storage capacity. If this is going to be the only storage you have in your house, then you might want to do RAID 1. That way, the two hard drives have mirrored copies. And people who know what they're talking about say this all the time. Mirroring is not a backup. It just means that there's two copies in case one of your hard drives fails. So you always want to follow the 3-2-1 rule, meaning you have 3 copies over 2 different methods and what is the one? 3 copies of your data stored on 2 different types of media with 1 copy kept off-site. Like in case of, something bad happens. You also want to make sure you get NAS hard drives. I recommend at least 4 terabytes each, which I'll put links to in the description. That will not cost you anything extra, but if you click on those links, Amazon's forced to give me like 1 to 3%, I think, and last month I made $18. It adds up. So now that everything's connected, there are a number of ways to configure the 2 Ethernet ports. Full transparency, they're all way above my knowledge level for now. What I do know is these are 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports, 2 of them, when a lot of options out there only give you one 1 gigabit Ethernet port. So once again, that brings me to the value you're getting by going with the Zimaboard 2. Its closest competitor, the Ugreen NAS Sync DXP2800, that's a mouthful, but that Ugreen competitor only has one 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. And if you're looking for turnkey options, the Ugreen is probably your best bet. But for my needs, the Zimaboard 2 was a much better value. I also got an Ethernet switch. This makes the connection to all of my devices more stable and reliable. So now I have a wired connection to the Zimaboard, to my TV, my editing laptop, my Linux laptop, and if I ever make friends, they can have a wired connection too. So the moment of truth. Now that everything's connected via Ethernet, let's take a look at the web interface, since that's mostly how I interact with it. One of the many reasons I chose to go with ZimaOS is the user-friendly interface and the readily available App Store. ZimaOS is a continuation of CasaOS, which seems to have had a small but loyal following. That makes it a little bit more established than some of the newer competitors out there. So that's how I'm doing it at home. How do I do it when I'm away from home? Does remote access work? Well, I wish it were that easy. And it 100% is. I was 100% expecting a headache. To my frickin' surprise, there was no difference between accessing through my mobile hotspot and my Wi-Fi network. And the download speed? Perfectly reasonable to me. It was quicker than it has been on the cloud. Because I connected everything on my home network, it looks like that connection maintained automatically. But ZimaOS presents options for remote connection without ever having to be on the same network. There are also ways to set up shared folders, so others can have access to the Zimaboard with limitations based on how it's configured. Truth be told, I still have some security things to figure out, and because it's so new to me, I don't want to throw it into this video until I understand it well enough to break it down. But what I will say is Tailscale is the easiest way to make sure the remote access is secure. So once it all comes together in my head, I'll be sure to share it with you, all 14 of you who have maybe made it this far. If you've made it this far, comment 14. And if I get more than 14 14s, I will buy a pizza for a stranger. But I won't film it because that feels kind of like expletive. Exploitive? I don't know how to say that. So have I done it? Have I officially replaced cloud storage? Truth is, I don't have full confidence because it's so new to me. So until I have a full backup system in place, the way I'm sure the people at Ice Whale and Zimaspace would want me to, I'm gonna maintain my cloud storage. The subscriptions are good for several more months anyway, so why not? But by the time those subscriptions expire, I'll have my own hard drive, hopefully another Zimaboard 2, or alternate network attached storage solution somewhere else, and every single day it's benefited me in some way. In the future, we're going to turn it into a personal streaming service, create virtual machines, set it up to replace all of my cloud subscriptions, and try our best to build the ultimate home assistant. So please hit the subscribe button if you'd be so kind. And I know there's going to be a day where things don't work exactly as they should, but that's technology for you. If I somehow lose access to my Zimaboard, I can still be confident in knowing the hard drives are at my home, and I'll probably still have access to those. And if I don't, this is why they have the 3-2-1 rule that I've always been extremely familiar with, which we should be doing anyway, even with the cloud, because even that's not guaranteed. Even if this was all the Zimaboard 2 did, allow me to access my storage remotely. I feel like the Zimaboard 2 was a very worth it purchase, and if you're looking to get started with home labbing, the Zimaboard 2 is a fantastic starting point, especially considering the cost of computer components today. Keep an eye out for the next videos featuring the Zimaboard 2 and the distro wheel, where I'll take a spin to find out what my next Linux distro is. Once again, I'm Distro Neighbor, supporting your right to choose the tech you use. Let's work together to take back tech. Have a beautiful day.